Well, hello and welcome to the Movie Paradise. I am your host, Nathanael Molnár, and this is Movie Night Tonight. Every single week here, we watch a new film and discuss it in depth, with each month having a new theme. We are currently in the month of January, which is our month of music movies, and the film we are discussing today, in the final installment in this month of music movies, is 2013's Begin Again. Once again, I'm your host, Nathanael Molnár. I'm joined by a great panel today. With me, we have Matt Smith.
Hello.
And Connor Murphy.
Hi.
So, let's start off this discussion by going around and saying what our first impressions of the film are. Keeping in mind, for the audience listening, this is a spoiler discussion. So we are talking all things Begin Again as if you watched the film with us. So, Matt, why don't you tell us your first impressions of Begin Again and how many times you've seen it?
I've only seen it once. And my first impression was that it's just cool. I think there's just a lot of really cool moments in it that just sort of come into this very exciting thing to watch. Mm-hmm. So I think I was just I was always interested, and I think that's really important for a movie.
Yeah. Connor, first impressions.
I enjoyed the movie a lot. When I was watching it, I thought it was going to be kind of cliche and that I wasn't going to like that about it. And it seemed to build up a few cliches and subvert them in the end, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. It was a good, had a good arc to it. Kept me engaged.
That's good. So this is probably my third or fourth time seeing the film, and I really like this movie a lot. I completely agree with you. I love how it subverts expectations, and we'll probably talk about more of that a little bit later in the discussion. But I think this is it's very well acted across the board. I think the performances are really good in this movie. I like all the music. I think it does a good job of capturing the music industry. And I just like this world, and I like these characters, and I like visiting it when I watch this film. So I really enjoy this movie a lot. But I'd say, going off of what you're saying, how it subverts expectations or builds up the potential for cliches or convention and kind of goes in a different direction. The first time I was watching this, and I'm curious to know if this is how you guys felt, the whole time I was expecting Mark Ruffalo and Keira Knightley to get together. And the movie, it was expected. It was setting it up in a way that was kind of expected that there was going to be a romance between them. And then it doesn't go in that route. And I'm really glad that it doesn't. Because I think it would have been very easy for the movie. Like, oh, well, we have a male character and a female character. Of course they've got to get together. But no, it's more about Keira Knightley's character growing and moving beyond Adam Levine. And then Mark Ruffalo, finding his love for his ex-wife again. And I like that they kind of, they definitely are very important to each other. And I think they love each other in many ways, but it's not like a romantic love between them. And I really appreciated that the film withheld that and chose not to go in that direction. I think it made it a stronger movie for that.
Yeah, it feels like it's a movie about friendship more than anything else. I feel like the friendship between, any of the friendships between characters, the friendships between Mark Ruffalo's character and Keira Knightley's character, is obviously the main crux of the film, but you see the friendship between Mark Ruffalo's character and his ex-wife, the friendship between Keira Knightley and Mark Ruffalo's daughter, and all of those friendships build up to make these people better at, whether in Mark Ruffalo's case, better at the romance that he used to have and, getting back into that, and in Keira Knightley's case, better at being her own individual person, not dependent on a relationship.
Yeah.
Oh, it just makes it more realistic, because sometimes people go through rough patches and they get back together, and sometimes they don't. And there's no rule to it, and there's no rule to whatever that something happens. So you can't because especially with Mark Ruffalo, what his wife did was kind of messed up.
Yeah,
but
very messed up.
But in reality, people can get by that stuff. It's all based on individual people and individual cases. So it's cool to see that it's accepted that stuff can happen, and then just because someone says when Adam Levine was I'm really sorry. So sometimes you can say sorry all you want, and it's still not going to happen in the end. And I feel like there's always like movies kind of want to have that redemption or that that closing where everyone's happy in the end, and people are happy in the end. It doesn't have to be in the way you expect.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good point. I think it's also interesting how the two relationships mirror each other, and that there's this predominant theme of the main characters being cheated on, and what that does to their relationships, and what that does even for their future relationships, in their inability to trust other people. And it seems like, and especially Mark Ruffalo, I really like his character in this movie. I think they do a very good job of setting him up in this film. He's definitely going through some hard times. And I like how, I like the alcoholic part of him. I like how that's woven into the film. I like how he's kind of a deadbeat dad, and he just is not the greatest person or easiest person to work with or live with. And I think that scene where Keira Knightley starts talking essentially out of her ass, saying, "Oh, well, if you had just done this, you would be a great dad, or your marriage would be saved," or whatever it was that she said, and he says, "You know nothing about me." I think in that moment, we kind of look at it through her eyes, and we're like, well, it's so obvious that he's the one screwing all this up, but we don't know what he knows, and that really it was his wife's fault that everything went to shit. And I just thought that was another great way to subvert expectations or play on conventions. I just think his character is really good. I love all the setup work in the beginning with him, especially when he's driving in the car, listening to all the records, and he's just like, "What the fuck is this?" and throws it all out the window. Like, I love all that. I think that's a great way to show who his character is. One, it sets up what his profession is. If we don't know specifically he's a music producer, we get a basic idea of who he is. We can tell what kind of personality he is. And it says a lot about his character without going into it too much or heavy exposition or anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a pretty strongly written scene. It achieves a lot of things in a very short time. And it's on the way to pick up his daughter, who looks surprised when she sees him. And everything they built into that scene was just
and
perfect.
Him taking the flask and everything, that was great. I loved how he never has money to buy his beers or anything like that. He's always like, "Oh shit, you got this? You gotta take this." Haley Steinfeld is also great in this. I love Haley Steinfeld. She's fantastic. She's been in a bunch of things. She was nominated for an Academy Award at like age 10 for True Grit. And she's just absolutely fantastic. I love seeing her pop up and stuff. And this was one of the first things I saw her in. She's just fantastic, and I love her character in this. That whole rooftop scene where she plays the electric guitar, I love how that all plays out. All the music scenes in this movie, I think, are really well done. I think they're very well crafted and well executed. I don't know if you guys share that sentiment.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially the first scene that really was this movie's really cool was when he was seeing all the instruments going and nothing was going on.
Oh, I love that.
I love when movies just say, "Hey, here's this cool thing we can do." And it doesn't have to be something that's used throughout the movie. It doesn't have to have any super significance to it. When movies just do cool things, and it just feels like someone was like, "Hey, wouldn't this be cool?" And then they're like, "Yeah," and then they did it. And
it really turns around what you have just seen about Mark Ruffalo's character for the past 10 minutes. You start to see there's magic in him. I don't know.
You could start to see the genius part of him.
Yeah.
And he's not just this schlubby, shitty guy.
Yeah.
There's a lot to him, and there's a reason why he was as successful as he was. And I think even it's hammered in later at CeeLo Green's mansion when he's saying, this guy, he does all these great things, and then he goes through a bit of a rough patch, and everybody forgets how great he is. Someone like that, he doesn't deserve it, or whatever. He doesn't. People should respect and appreciate who he is and everything that he's done. I think you kind of see the greatness of his character and how great he is at producing music and all that, and finding talent and recognizing talent when no one else will recognize it. I think that's a very crucial scene for that.
Yeah, they really make you want to know more about what he used to be like, because they talk about it like just enough. Like you hear like when he's getting fired, he's like, I built this from the ground up, and you're like, what?
This art is mine. I'm taking this art. That was great.
But like, how did that happen? I want to know how he got to like. I haven't even seen him at his peak, and I want to see how he got there.
Prequel, anyone? Begin.
Begin.
Follow
First time.
Yes, begin. I think the structure of like the whole first act, I think is just great. I love it. I love how we just start off with Keira Knightley's song, and then we go back and we find out everything with Mark Ruffalo leading up to that point, and then we go back and figure out with everything with Keira Knightley up until that point. I just thought it was so well structured, and they utilized this technique a lot, I found, where they'll just jump to the present, and then they'll go and show, like even when they were assembling the band members, they were just showing all the whole band together playing, and then they went back and showed how they got each of the people. I thought it was just a very interesting technique for how to tell this story, and I liked how it was consistent all the way through, and I thought it was just a great way to especially introduce your main characters.
Yep.
Even the small band members that really didn't do anything except be band members had like something to them. Like I loved when they go into when they see the guy on the piano, and then they just cut to show that he's playing for a bunch of like little kids doing ballet. But that's not the... I quit! But it's great because that's not the first thing you see, because the angle they show it at, you just see him on the piano.
Yeah.
And then when they leave, like the adults are like, where the hell are you going? All the kids are just like, bye, bye.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like there's just a little bit of character to everyone, even though they're not really important to the performance or anything.
Yeah.
They're just there for the music.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Yeah.
And I also just really like the concept. Like the concept of them making this outdoor album. And I think, and the way that they were talking about like capturing New York and all of its ways, and they're like, even if we have the sirens in the background, or the kids playing basketball, or the subway train, or anything like that, that just adds to it. And I really like that the whole concept of that.
Yeah,
I'd love to get someone who lives in New York to hear what they think about this movie, because I feel like if you live in New York, or if you've been there a lot, you'll probably have a real fun time of just being like, oh, I know everything about this. I've been there. I've seen that. Or like it just, feels like New York to someone that's lived there. So I'd like to, get their input on it.
Yeah.
It's like when any movie shot in Boston.
Yeah.
For us, it's like, oh, I know exactly where that is.
Yeah. No, I know that feeling.
I wonder if people who live in New York get really tired of seeing things shot in their city.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be
so many.
I've seen that bench in every movie.
Yeah. As somebody that's been doing like recording lately, though, it was a little bit tough to watch some of those scenes and how like cavalier they were with the equipment that they were using and placement. Like the audio that you heard when they were performing outside was like pristine studio quality audio, and then you see they have like 3 vocal mics and then Mark Ruffalo out there with like a boom pole trying to get the rest of the audio. Like that was like a nitpicky thing. Just I was watching.
Yeah, there's a little bit of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they didn't mic any instruments other than like maybe the violins and vocals. But it was definitely like that didn't detract from it much. It was just the first time I saw that I was like, do people believe this? Like, do people think this could really make that sound? But yeah, and it worked too for the sake of the movie. Seeing Mark Ruffalo out there with like this dinky boom pole trying to get all of the audio added to it, definitely.
Yeah. And I think the music also, just itself, I think it's really good music. I love that song, Lost Stars. And I like how we see different iterations of it. This is it's hard for me to bring up because neither of you have seen the film. A Star is Born I could see a lot of similarities between this and A Star Is Born when I was watching it, specifically in the popularization of music. There's this theme in A Star Is Born where Lady Gaga's character starts doing more popular music, which goes against what Bradley Cooper's character has done, and he kind of struggles seeing the direction that her career is going in. And we kind of see something similar along those lines in this film, where Keira Knightley wrote the song Lost Stars, and as she says in the film, she wrote it as a ballad. And then Adam Levine's character takes it and he turns it into something so completely against what it is that she had intended it to be. And he says, well, I'm trying to make it a big hit. I want it to be like on all the radios and stuff. And she's like, well, that's not what the point of this song is. Why do you care? And I think there's this really interesting theme all the way, or rather, thing that just keeps getting brought up across the entirety of the film of music that is written, made, and produced just for you, and music that is made, written, and produced for a wide audience, and caring about what other people think of your work, whether you should, whether you shouldn't. I think it just dealt with a lot of very interesting ideas, especially in the context of a music movie, because this month is all just music movies that we've been watching and discussing, and I don't think we've watched a music movie that has dealt with the things that, I guess Almost Famous does definitely deal with the music industry, but rather that focuses on performances and playing at concerts and rock stars and stuff, as opposed to the actual production of an album, which is what this is. So I don't think we've seen a music movie this month that quite captures the essence of music movies or the music industry quite like this film.
Well, as a point to something you were saying before, it's similar theme to Frank, in that her character is constantly bringing up this idea of the music isn't for the audience to, it's not to get popular, it's to be its own music. And, the whole theme of Frank is, or one of the themes of Frank is about that being, okay with not being popular music, not having fans, and that's like okay with them. Although if Frank were applied to this and this were the same movie, it would be like entirely about Adam Levine's character learning what Keira Knightley thinks. But this movie definitely like takes that and just brings it into this relationship's not going to work out because they want different things from music.
Yeah, I think they're definitely looking for different things, and I think that's definitely emphasized at the end when she puts the whole album out for $1. I love that line. Mark Ruffalo is like, "Can it at least just be $2?" And she's like, "No, $1." And I really like this movie a lot.
What year was this?
2013, I believe.
Yeah, putting an album out for $1 is like not as big a deal now, I think, as it was in 2013.
Yeah,
but it was. I can definitely, when I saw that, it kind of dated the movie a little bit, just because, people release so much music for free now.
But plus, like the Bandcamp has like the name your price thing, where like the minimum is $1. But I was kind of wondering, why didn't they just do that? And I'm like, it's an old movie. After that, the scene after that, where he's being questioned by, I guess, his boss or his partner about, like, did you know anything about this? And he's just denying it the whole time. It's like, Mark Ruffalo, his character is like so much. He's grown, but like he's still like the same character.
Yeah, that's
he's just like denying. He's like, no, I didn't know anything. These musicians, man, they're crazy. And even though his partner wasn't buying it at all.
Yeah, and that's a sign of great character development, when you're able to take your character and bring them in a new direction and have them grow and be new without losing the essence of who they started out being. I love one of my favorite parts of the movie is when it's Keira Knightley and Mark Ruffalo have made the album, and they're sitting with all the board members of the studio, and they're explaining, well, just like books, the artist will get $1 out of $10, and a $9 will go to the studio. And Keira Knightley goes, well, considering we did this, this, and this, and this, and you guys didn't do anything, why are you getting 9 of my $10? And then Mark Ruffalo chokes for a second. That was played perfectly. There's a lot of great comedy in this. They really do a great job with the comedy. I was saying to you earlier, I really like the use of the James Corden character.
Yeah.
Because I thought they brought him in at the right points, because he was definitely the comic relief character. They brought him in at the right points where you needed a little bit of comedy or just a little bit of levity to take away from maybe some of the more emotional or more dramatic scenes, but they didn't overuse him. You could have had him in too much of the movie, and it could have like completely upset the scale or the balance of the film. But they used him enough, and they knew when to cut to him and when to leave him out of the scene or leave him out of the movie or whatever. They knew how to strike that right balance so that he perfectly accented the film without overpowering it or weighing it down.
He wasn't even like the comic relief to like ease the tension completely. He would just ease it for like a second, and then you'd immediately go back to like when she was upset and he was like asking her what she likes in her tea, and she was just not interested at all. And he was just like just awkwardly like, I'll just figure it out. And like the intensity doesn't really drop all that much. It's just like subverted for just a little bit, and then they go back. Especially and then the song where she's singing into the voicemail. I think I think that might be one of my favorite moments when he's trying to play the kazoo, and she just strikes it down. And I was telling you earlier how that's how the kazoo part isn't in this, at least what's on Spotify. And I was really upset about that. I was waiting for it too. I wanted to hear the kazoo just cut off, but I guess I'll have to find that somewhere else.
That kazoo part is so great.
He wanted it so badly too.
Yeah.
He was also like, there were so many points in this film where I was like, oh, they're definitely going to turn this into like a romantic interest for her, because that's what movies do. Like as soon as she went to him, as soon as the breakup happened, I was like, okay, they're going to be a thing now. And they weren't. And I, like every time I thought they were going to go that direction, they didn't. And so I'm glad that they did that.
I don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
There aren't a lot of movies where, like, especially where it's not the main focus, like, it ends up being she is okay on her own. And, like, the movie isn't about her learning she's okay on her own or anything like that. It's just, you know, she ends up on her own and she's okay with that after this revelation about her life and all that. But, you know, there aren't that many movies that are like that. Unless it's very specifically, like, we're going to be a movie that empowers women into realizing they don't need to be in a relationship. There aren't a lot of movies where women don't end up in relationships when there are so many ways they could. Yeah,
it's very casual about that.
Yeah, ending in a relationship just kind of seems like the way it's gone that you end movies.
Yep.
And then people just, a lot of movies just don't know how to end it any other way, because it's just, everyone knows that when they get together, okay, the movie's done now, we can, you know, clap and whatever. But this movie does, like, it had, like, something else, like the album being finished, or, like, the ending of her and Adam Levine's, like, the end of that arc of their relationship. Like, that's the ending, and, like, it's satisfying. It's not just, like, an empty ending where it's like, oh, what happens next? Like, you know what happens next, and they didn't have, like, a cliche, like, oh, she falls in love and she's happy again. Yeah. She's happy without being in love. Like, oh, that's possible. Movies taught me that wasn't possible. So...
Yeah, the movie very, like, secretly, it does end on a relationship being formed. It's just reigniting the relationship between Mark Ruffalo and Catherine Keener. So it does kind of go in that direction, just not in the way that you would expect.
Right.
And I think that is, like, and we've kept mentioning this, but I think one of the greatest parts about this movie, or one of the greatest elements of it, is that it keeps setting itself up to go in a conventional route, and then and it's not in your face about the fact, it's not like, oh, we're trying to be edgy, you know, we're setting it up for it to go in this cliched conventional way, and then we're changing things up. It does it in a casual way. It just, it's not in your, I don't think this movie is in your face in any way, really. It just kind of just happens the way that it happens, and it just happens not to go in the way that a lot of other filmmakers would make it go in that way.
It feels like they're just messing with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we know what you're going to think, and we know what you're going to expect, so we're just going to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
As opposed to making it like, it's like they know that they're subverting expectations, but they're like trying to pretend that they're not, in a way.
Yeah.
So it just gives a much better feel to it.
It does play in a little bit to one cliche, and like the manic pixie dream girl kind of a cliche, not to an extreme extent, but at least in the beginning of their relationship, there's definitely an element of Keira Knightley saving Mark Ruffalo from, being in the pits, and he even has a line that's like, "I was gonna kill myself until I heard your song," which was a little bit of a cliche.
Well, I think they kind of save each other. And
Yeah.
I think that's more the point. Like, she saves him and he saves her.
Yeah, but I also, there's definitely an element of he is like, there's nothing left in his life, and this girl comes along, and that's definitely a cliched idea.
Was he serious about that? Because
That he was
don't
going
know.
to kill himself? I think he was going to kill himself.
I picked it up. I heard it as he was just saying it, and he was being his character, where he just like says stuff.
Yeah,
I don't think I didn't pick up on that he was like, it was a serious thing. I might just need to see it again, but
Well, I think he was, like,
just
in front of the train and everything. I think he was ready to do it. I don't think it wasn't quite literally that he was going to kill himself and then he heard her music and that stopped him from doing it. It was more that night he was going to kill himself and he doesn't, and then he goes into that bar and then he hears her sing, and now suddenly he feels like he has a new purpose.
I don't know. I feel like I didn't really pick up on him actually trying to kill himself.
Well, I think that was the point that happened in the movie. We paused because of stuff going on. But so I think that moment kind of got interrupted during the scuffle of everything.
Yeah.
But having seen the movie a few times, I know there's a definitive point where he was about to step in front of the train or whatever. And then something happens within the scene. I forget exactly what, but something happens within the scene that prevents him from doing that, which then leads him to actually going to that bar and everything. And I think part of the whole, the genius of the way that the first act is structured, of we see the scene and we go back and see Mark Ruffalo's day or life leading up to that, and going back and seeing Keira Knightley, I think it very much emphasizes what points they were both at very low points, probably the lowest of their lives at that point, because he was about to kill himself, everything, and then she had just gone through like this terrible breakup with Adam Levine and was at her lowest. They were both at their lowest, and then just seeing the two characters collide in this moment, I think it really just emphasizes how both of them really just helped elevate each other and help them begin again.
I like what you did there.
Yeah.
Especially after, when they were like walking out of the thing, it was kind of interesting how they were both just like this, both really like just upset and just fed up with the world right now, but they were both had the same emotion, so they were both being snarky to each other.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't know that both either of them was having stuff going on.
Yeah.
It was just, I don't know, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
They both had the same emotions and they acted the same way because of them.
Yeah. So this is our final episode of this month of music movies, and we have seen quite a few of music movies this month. We have seen Almost Famous, we saw Straight Outta Compton, School of Rock, Frank, and now Begin Again. And so, as we come to a close on this month of music movies, I'd be curious to talk about I guess we could relate it specifically to Begin Again. How does this fit in with the other ones, and how does it function as a music movie compared to the other ones?
It's definitely about self-discovery in the same way that Almost Famous is. It's about people learning a truth about themselves because of their relationship with music and the people that they find because of music. So that's definitely a big parallel there.
Yeah.
I already mentioned Frank earlier, that it has a similar theme about the need for popularity not being a universal thing. Well, there was another one that I have seen, right?
School of Rock?
School of Rock, yeah. I don't know how similar it is to School of Rock. It's about people realizing their musical potential and doing something badass, so there's that.
Yeah.
There's students.
Yeah.
There's a couple of students in the band. I guess
Yeah.
that's a child prodigy. There's a couple of those.
There's a guy who plays for a bunch of kids in the ballet.
Matt, do you see similarities between all these films, other than the fact that they are music movies, like themes or concepts?
Well, with Straight Outta Compton is it's about a very specific time in the music industry, and a very specific issue in the music industry. But I think with Straight Outta Compton, there's still a little bit of music meaning something to yourself as opposed to, I guess, what certain other people. I'm trying to see how do I, like when they're like when it's like fuck the police, like they didn't care, they were doing it for their own reasons. So I guess there's a little bit of similarity there where it's like you don't care what people think of your music.
Yeah.
Or even though it's not society, it's it's police, like it's a very specific group, but still like you're doing it for your own reason.
Yeah.
And like you're totally fine with the repercussions, or in Keira Knightley's case, like she's totally fine with her music being for her and not getting really anything from it.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think something we see over and over again in all these movies is how personal music is to people. In all these films, it's about a character's very specific relationship with music. In a lot of these cases, the music is what keeps them going, keeps them alive, and keeps them from darkness. In Almost Famous, I mean, yeah, the characters are doing all this crazy shit and everything, but it's the music that drives them. Same with Straight Outta Compton. School of Rock is all about how, for Jack Black's character, what music means to him and him wanting to impart that on the students. In Frank, we see that with what does music mean to Frank and how he looks at the world and music through a certain specific lens. And we also see that in Begin Again. What music means to Keira Knightley, what it means to Mark Ruffalo. And I think with all these music movies, I think the biggest takeaway is that these films are all trying to talk about how personal music can be and what music means to individuals and how we can find individual meaning within music and how something, and kind of the subjectivity of music and how something, and I think this is also in Frank and this also is very much in Begin Again, how someone might listen to something and not see anything, but then someone else listens to it and sees everything. And I just think those are very interesting concepts and themes to see connected through all these different films that we've been watching, and how they're very different movies, even though they're all linked through music. They're very different films, but then there's this also similar concepts just innately because they are about music.
Definitely. I agree. I couldn't have said it better myself.
That's why Nathaniel runs the movie Paradise, and we're just here. This is why we're the panel, and he's Nathanael Molnár of the movie Paradise.
I guess so. So,
you know what really upsets me? The fact that they didn't end up together in La La Land at the end. That was just messed up, man.
Going back, I love how unconventional the ending to the movie was.
Yeah, but you didn't expect a reference to the first movie Paradise. Movie
second.
Night.
That was second.
Oh, was it the second? Oh, first.
Whiplash was the first
I got
one.
confused.
Which was our first movie month. This is our second month of music movies.
Wow.
So technically, if we're talking about all the music movies we have discussed on movie night tonight, it would be Whiplash, La La Land, Almost Famous, Straight Outta Compton, School of Rock, Frank, and Begin Again.
This movie is just like Whiplash because Mark Ruffalo pushes Keira Knightley to play music, and it's hard.
And she in her fingers, she gets real hurt.
Yeah.
And the bald guy, what's his name again?
Fletcher.
J.K. Simmons.
Oh yeah, J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, him. He's
Fletcher.
he's here in this movie, and he's like, do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not quite my tempo.
Not quite.
So as we bring this discussion to a close, let's go around and say what our final thoughts are on Begin Again, starting with Matt.
What are my final thoughts? I think this is a movie that I'm gonna look back to a lot when I'm just like looking for something to do interesting. Or like, if I want to like know how to do like comic relief, this is definitely a movie I'm gonna go back for. Or if I just like, if I want to structure something differently, I feel like there's just a lot in this movie that I feel like there's a lot to learn from. It's just a very good example of how to do a lot of really cool things. Plus, it's just,
it's a good movie.
Yeah, music movies are pretty interesting because, not only are there movies, you listen to music as well. Yeah. So it's cool. Two things at once.
Connor, final thoughts?
I enjoyed this movie a lot. I appreciated the subversion of cliches, although I acknowledge that one cliche that I brought up earlier, which we could probably argue about forever. Mm-hmm. That is not a huge thing, though, and it didn't subtract from how much I liked the movie all that much. So I definitely thought it was a very good movie.
Yeah. And I really like this movie a lot. Like I said, I think it pretty much is summed up by what I said in the beginning. I just like this world, and I like visiting these characters and living the story, and I think the comedy all works. I think the emotional beats all work. I love the character growth and development. I love the subversion of expectations and convention, and the music is really good. I love that final song, Lost Stars. This is just a really good movie. So I would say it's a feel-good movie, but not in a way that a lot of people would immediately think what feel-good means. It's not feel-good in that the sole purpose of the film is just to make you feel happy about yourself. But rather, when you watch this movie, you just walk away. I just feel good when I watch this movie. I like seeing the growth of these characters from the lowest points to finding new meaning. It's all about, and I think the title is perfect, Begin Again. It's about characters finding a new beginning in their life, and I just really like that about this movie. And I just really enjoy this film a lot. So that, like I mentioned, that was our final movie of our month of music movies. So now that we enter February, we are doing...
Edgar Wright?
No, not yet. Aww. Not yet. We, in February, are going to be doing a new theme. And that theme is going to be romantic comedies. One of my favorite genres of film. I love romantic comedies. And I think when romantic comedies are done right, they can be spectacular. And for our first week in our month of romantic comedies, we are doing one of, if not the best romantic comedy, When Harry Met Sally. Fantastic movie. I cannot wait to watch and discuss this film. It is going to be a lot of fun. So, once again, I am your host, Nathanael Molnár, and I'd like to thank my panel for being here. Matt Smith, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
And Connor Murphy, thanks again for always being here.
Thank you.
And make sure to like, comment, subscribe for more content. And be sure to follow us on all of our various social medias at Movie Night TNT. That's Movie Night TNT. And we are available Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can check us out there. All of our previous episodes are available on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. So you can check out every episode of Movie Night tonight there. And until next week, when we discuss When Harry Met Sally. Thanks for listening.